Hey guys, Toast here. Welcome to another episode of Is It Under or Overpowered, where we dissect the least and most used weapon variants for each class in Battlefield 1, and discuss if the weapons are really that under or overpowered, as well as what I believe DICE may be able to do to make the weapon fall more in line with others for the class. Since there's been some debate around this topic, I'd like to note that this discussion should be taken in the context of whether the variant is over or underpowered within its specific weapon class, and not necessarily within the overall balance of the game, as that's not what's being discussed here, and would require a much more wide-reaching and in-depth analysis of other weapon classes as they relate to the class of this weapon. All statistics are courtesy of BattlefieldTracker.com and are based on the amount of time spent using each weapon, not necessarily how many kills have been achieved with those weapons. Though I should mention that the kill statistics do strongly mimic the time spent statistics for just about all weapons. Today's topic of discussion is going to be the Russian 1895 trench variant, which historically and consistently since launch has been the single least used variant of all rifles for the Scout class. Now we're going to make the baseline assumption that if all weapons were perfectly balanced, given that at the time this video is being released, including current DLC weapons, there are a total of 19 variants of rifles for the Scout class, theoretically we should be seeing a roughly 5.25% usage time for each rifle. According to actual usage statistics, the Russian 1895 trench variant is being used by roughly 0.2 to 0.3% of the Battlefield 1 community while running the Scout class. In fact, as of the end of May 2017, this weapon has only hit its maximum of 0.5% usage time a total of 5 days since launch, 3 of which were within the first month after release. There's really only one other Scout weapon that has such a historically low usage, which is the M1903 Experimental, which we'll cover in a different episode, but even that variant has been used more than the Russian 1895 trench on all but 3 days since the game's release. With the exception of those 3 days, the Russian 1895 trench variant's usage rarely ever exceeds that of any other weapon variant in the Scout class, with the exception of the Lebel infantry and sniper variants on the first day they were released, and the Martini Henry sniper variant again for the first few days after it was released, simply because not enough people had the weapons yet. Now, we would normally spend a moderate amount of time covering what we know about the Russian 1895 as a whole compared to other Scout rifles, but because of the significant differences between variants, we'll touch on the overall placement of the rifle only briefly. The Russian 1895 in general is a middle-of-the-road rifle for the Scout class. It doesn't tend to be the best at anything, but it also doesn't tend to be the worst. It has a decent rate of fire, decent muzzle velocity, a relatively slow reload, and a magazine of only 5 rounds, which is on the smaller side. In general, it's very much a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none type of weapon. Now, because of the pretty significant differences between variants, let's delve a little bit deeper into these differences as it'll be much more telling. The sniper and infantry variants are both nearly identical in just about all aspects. They have the same damage model, same rate of fire, same muzzle velocity. The only differences come into play with the recoil, spread, and sights. One is obviously designed for more long-range shooting with a high magnification sniper scope, where the other is designed to be more mid-range with the iron sights but still traditional damage model. The trench variant is the very distinct outlier for a number of reasons. It has an entirely different damage model that has a maximum damage of 79 and minimum damage of 40. This means that the weapon can only be a one-shot kill if you hit a headshot up to the point where the weapon hits 56 damage, and will never be a one-shot kill without a headshot. Unlike most of the other Scout rifles, the Russian 1895 trench has a damage model where it deals maximum damage from point-blank range and then drops off the further you go. With the special .93x limb modifier that this weapon has, this means that at further ranges, you're going to be doing a potential minimum damage of 37, making the weapon a 3-shot kill at most at long range. To counterbalance these differences, DICE increased the rate of fire to 125 rounds per minute, more than double the other variants, gave it the best hipfire spread, as with all trench variants in the game, but also reduced the muzzle velocity to 580 meters per second from 820. So with these stats, obviously the trench variant is designed to be a close to mid-range weapon that's supposed to take 2 or more shots to kill your target in most situations. Where I find a bit of an issue with this weapon is that almost every other Scout rifle in the game, again with the exception of the M1903 Experimental, is capable of getting a one-shot headshot kill at the same range as the Russian 1895 trench, as well as capable of getting one-shot headshot kills at every range, and most capable of getting one-shot kills at certain ranges without needing headshots with the exception of the M95. This means that players with particularly good aim that can consistently hit headshots can kill multiple enemies more quickly at all ranges, even close range, despite the 1895 trench's higher rate of fire. Now, to answer the question, is the weapon underpowered? It would seem to me that based on what we've discussed so far, the Russian 1895 trench is a bit underpowered in its current state. It does do well in close range where it's designed to, but the only way in which it truly excels at that range is if you don't account for headshots at all, since every other scout weapon except for the M1903 Experimental is a one-shot headshot kill at that range. Even if other scout weapons were to miss headshots consistently, the time difference between taking multiple accurate shots with the 1895 trench and taking a single shot with other weapons and then swapping to a sidearm is pretty small, so while the 1895 trench will still technically have an edge with the rate of fire, that edge is extremely slight. So how can DICE go about adjusting this? Well, they'd need to give the variant something that's going to make it worth using, but not make it much more powerful as to not throw off the balance between the 1895 trench and other weapons within the scout class. To me, there are a couple changes that I feel could make the variant more interesting and perhaps more worthwhile to use. I think the focus should be on making the weapon variant a close-range powerhouse at the cost of mid- and long-range viability, which it already lacks. Initially, I was thinking of perhaps recommending an increase to the maximum damage with the same damage model it already has, but after thinking about it, it made me realize that this method would essentially just make it a better version of the Gewehr M95, so I think the better way to go about doing this to keep the weapon as a unique but viable option would be to increase the rate of fire up to around 150 rounds per minute, which is going to allow you to take more shots more quickly, but in conjunction with that, I think that the rechambering animation should be toned down a little bit on this variant to make target acquisition between each shot faster while maintaining your aim down sight, and the reload time I feel should be decreased by maybe about 25% so that reloading doesn't take you out of the action for as prolonged a period as it currently does. These changes would make the weapon more powerful at close range, allowing you faster and more accurate follow-up potential, while keeping you out of the action for less time and still being distinct from the Gewehr M95. This would cement the weapon's close-range dominance while not making it any more effective at long range where the weapon is designed to fall short. Now I want to know how you feel about the Russian 1895 trench variant. How would you go about changing it to increase its usage without making it unbalanced? Let me know in the comments. If you liked the video, please leave a like, and if you want to see more content, please subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Toast, and I'll talk to you soon.